For so long, I had walked around feeling like I had to earn Jake's love by giving him everything he wanted. I was the perfect mom who never said no, never asked questions, and never expected anything in return except maybe a phone call on my birthday. I had been invisible for years, only becoming visible when they needed money for rent, food, or their latest shopping trip. But Emma's words about close family woke something up inside me that had been sleeping for too long. I started adding up all the money in my head. Monthly help, emergency loans, gifts for holidays. It was over $15,000 in 2 years. $15,000 from my late husband's life insurance money. Money he left so I could live comfortably in my retirement years. Instead, I had given it away trying to buy love from people who saw me as a bank that walked and talked. What did I get for all that money? A son who couldn't look me in the eye when his wife told me I wasn't family enough for their wedding. That night, after hanging up on Emma, I sat on my old couch and cried. But these weren't sad tears. They were angry tears. Frustrated tears from years of being taken advantage of by the people who should have loved me most. I cried for all the times I felt like my only value was the checks I wrote. I cried for the lonely birthdays when they were too busy to call. I cried for the Christmas mornings when I gave expensive gifts and got nothing back except a quick, "Thanks, Mom," before they rushed off to Emma's family dinner. I cried for the mother I used to be before I became their personal ATM. I cried for the woman who lost herself trying to be useful to people who didn't see her as a person. When I woke up the next morning, something inside me had changed forever. It wasn't just hurt feelings anymore. It was something harder and colder. I looked in my bathroom mirror at the same tired face I'd seen for months. The same gray hair that needed styling. The same worried eyes that had spent too many nights lying awake thinking about Jake and Emma's problems. But now there was something different in my expression. A strength I hadn't felt in years. A decision that was growing stronger every minute. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table where I had written so many checks for their expenses. Today, this table would witness something completely different. I pulled out my bank statements and my checkbook to see the damage in real numbers. I wanted to understand exactly how foolish I had been with my money. Monthly payments of $400 for 24 months equaled $9,600. Emergency loans for car repairs, medical bills, and their vacation to Florida added another $3,000. Holiday gifts, birthday money, and their furniture totaled about $2,500 more. The exact amount was $15,100. $15,000 I had taken from my future to fund their present, only to be told I wasn't close enough family to witness their marriage. My phone rang and Jake's name appeared on the screen. Usually, my heart would race as I hurried to answer, hoping he was calling just to chat or maybe to apologize for the wedding situation. This time I let it ring 4 times before I picked up. "Hi, Mom," he said in that guilty voice children use when they know they've done something wrong. "Emma told me you two talked yesterday. Can we come over and explain everything?" I almost laughed. Now they wanted to explain. Now they wanted to visit. "Jake," I said simply, "I'm busy today." The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. 20 minutes later, Emma called. Then Jake called again. Then Emma sent a text message saying they needed to talk urgently. I deleted the message without reading it completely. At noon, I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. I hadn't done that in months without having some errand to run for Jake and Emma. Usually, I was rushing to the bank for their money transfers or to the store to buy something they needed. Today, I walked just because I wanted to feel the sun on my face. I passed the park where Jake used to play soccer as a little boy, back when I was his hero instead of his ATM. At the bank, I stopped in front of the big glass doors. Mrs. Patterson, the branch manager, waved at me from behind her desk. She had processed every single money transfer to Jake and Emma for 2 years. She had watched my savings account get smaller and smaller while their checking account grew fatter and fatter. I walked inside and went straight to her office. "Mrs. Patterson," I said, "I need to cancel all my automatic transfers immediately." She looked shocked because these transfers had been as regular as clockwork. "Is everything all right, Mrs. Thompson?" she asked with real concern. "Everything is perfect," I replied. I just want my money to stay in my account where it belongs. While Mrs. Patterson worked on the computer to stop all the transfers, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Jake, Emma, Jake again. It was like they had a special alarm that went off when their money source was in danger. I turned my phone completely off and watched Mrs. Patterson type. "Mrs. Thompson," she said as she printed out the cancellation papers, "I hope nobody is pressuring you to make these changes. You've always been so generous with your family." Her words touched my heart more than any call from Jake had in months. "Nobody is pressuring me," I told Mrs. Patterson. "For the first time in years, I'm making my own choices about my own money." When I left the bank, I felt 20 pounds lighter. Like I had left a heavy backpack full of worry and obligation in that office. For the first time in 2 years, every dollar in my account belonged only to me. I had no debts to pay for ungrateful people. No promises to keep to people who broke their promises to me. I walked home thinking about all the things I hadn't done because I was always saving money for Jake and Emma's needs. The weekend trips I didn't take because they might need emergency money. The nice dinners I didn't buy because every dollar saved was a dollar I could give them. The new winter coat I didn't purchase because their heating bill was more important. When I got home, I found 2 cars parked in my driveway. Jake's blue car and Emma's red car. Through my front window, I could see people moving around inside my house. My heart started pounding. They still had keys because I trusted them with everything, including access to my home. I took 3 deep breaths before opening my front door. Inside my living room, Jake was pacing like a trapped animal while Emma sat on my couch holding papers. A man in a gray suit was looking through my mail on the kitchen counter. Mail. My personal letters and bills. "What is going on here?" I asked in a voice that was louder than I expected. All 3 of them turned to stare at me like I was interrupting their meeting. Emma jumped up first, and her voice had that desperate tone I'd heard on the phone. "Mrs. Thompson, thank goodness you're here. This is Mr. Wilson from the legal aid office. We asked him to come look at your finances because we're worried about you." My finances. The question came out of my mouth sharper than I intended. What's wrong with my finances? Jake finally found his voice, though he still couldn't look me in the eyes. "Mom, we went to the bank to ask about the monthly transfers and they said you canceled everything. Mrs. Patterson told us you seemed confused and upset. We're scared you're not thinking clearly anymore." Mr. Wilson walked over with his hand extended like we were meeting for the first time. "Mrs. Thompson, your children asked me to review your recent financial decisions. Sometimes older people make choices they don't fully understand. Older people. Like I was a child who couldn't handle my own money. These are my private papers," I said, collecting my mail from the kitchen counter where he'd been reading it. "You have no right to go through my personal things without asking me first." Jake stepped forward with that condescending voice he'd been using since Emma came into his life. "Mom, we're worried about you. First, you stop helping us financially for no reason. Then you don't answer our phone calls. We think maybe you need someone to help you make better decisions." Emma nodded her head like she was agreeing with a doctor's diagnosis. "Mrs. Thompson, honey, we know you've been lonely since Dad died. Sometimes when people get older and isolated, they make choices that don't make sense." The word isolated hit me like a slap. Now I understood why they brought the lawyer. They wanted to prove I was too lonely and confused to manage my own money. The same people who had isolated me from their wedding were now using my loneliness as evidence against me. "I am not confused," I said with a firmness that made everyone go quiet. "I am clearer than I've been in years. And all of you need to leave my house right now." Mr. Wilson cleared his throat like a teacher trying to get attention. "Mrs. Thompson, your children have a legal right to protect you if they believe you're not able to make good financial decisions anymore." Legal right. The words made my blood freeze. Protect me from what? Yes. From deciding that my money belongs to me? Emma stood up like she was ready to fight. "We're not trying to hurt you. We just want to make sure you don't waste your savings on strangers or get tricked by people who want to take advantage of you." The irony was incredible. The people who had been taking advantage of me for 2 years were worried about strangers taking advantage of me. Strangers, I repeated slowly. You mean like the daughter-in-law who told me I wasn't close enough family to attend my son's wedding? Jake's face turned bright red. Mom, that was a misunderstanding. The wedding was small and informal. We didn't think you'd want to come to a boring city hall ceremony. Another lie wrapped in concern. Jake, I said with sadness in my voice, there is no misunderstanding big enough to explain why your mother wasn't invited to your wedding. Mr. Wilson pulled a folder from his briefcase and set it on my coffee table. Mrs. Thompson, I've prepared some papers that might help this situation. A simple power of attorney that would let Jake and Emma help you manage your money more easily. I picked up the folder and threw it directly into my trash can without opening it. The only thing that needs managing is your exit from my house. Emma started crying, but they weren't real tears. They were frustrated tears from someone who wasn't getting their way. You can't just cut us off like this, Mrs. Thompson. We have bills to pay. We made plans based on your help. We bought things because we knew we could count on you. There it was. The truth finally came out. They had made financial plans using my money. They had bought things with money that wasn't theirs. And now I was the bad guy for wanting my money back. Plans based on my money, I said clearly. Not based on my happiness. Not based on my feelings. Not based on including me in your lives. Just based on my bank account. Jake tried to step closer, but I moved away from him. This wasn't my little boy anymore. This was a 32-year-old man who saw his mother as an obstacle between him and easy money. Mom, we made mistakes with a wedding, he said in a voice that was supposed to sound sorry. Emma was nervous and said the wrong thing. We can fix this if you just start being reasonable again. Reasonable. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. Being reasonable means pretending it doesn't hurt to be erased from the most important day of your life. It means acting like money is more important than family. Mr. Wilson packed his papers like someone who was used to losing these kinds of battles. Mrs. Thompson, your family can take legal action if they believe you're making irrational choices due to mental health issues. A judge might decide you need someone to help manage your affairs. His words were like a punch to my stomach. They weren't just threatening to take my money. They were threatening to take my freedom. Mr. Wilson, I said, looking him straight in the eyes, I suggest you research my background before you threaten me. I worked as a bookkeeper for 30 years. I managed my husband's medical bills during his cancer treatment. I raised my son alone after his father died. I've been handling money and making decisions longer than Emma has been alive. Emma stopped fake crying and stared at me with a coldness that showed her real personality. This isn't over, Mrs. Thompson. We have rights too. And we have lawyers who know how to protect those rights. Perfect, I replied. Hire all the lawyers you want. Pay for them with your own money, because mine isn't available anymore. The three of them walked toward my front door with wounded pride. Before Jake left, he turned back to me one final time. Mom, you're making a huge mistake. When you're older and need help, we won't be there for you. His words were meant to scare me, but they just made me sad. Jake, I said with deep disappointment, you haven't been there for me in years. The only difference now is that I've finally noticed. After I locked the door behind them, I stood in my quiet living room for the first time in months without feeling anxious about their problems. It was the most beautiful silence I had heard in 2 years. That night I couldn't sleep, but not because I was worried or sad. I was wide awake with excitement about taking control of my life again. I lay in bed making plans like a general preparing for battle. If Jake and Emma wanted to fight me legally, I would be ready. But I would fight with intelligence and preparation, not with emotion and desperation. At 6 in the morning, I was already dressed and ready to start my new life. My first stop was the office of attorney Mrs. Rodriguez, a woman I had met years ago when I handled my husband's will. Unlike Mr. Wilson, who worked for Jake and Emma, Mrs. Rodriguez had a reputation for protecting elderly people from family members who tried to steal their money. Mrs. Thompson, she said as I explained my situation, what your son and daughter-in-law tried to do is called elder financial abuse. It's a serious crime. And the fact that they entered your house without permission makes it even worse. Her words made me feel better and worse at the same time. Better because I wasn't crazy for feeling abused. Worse because I realized how serious the situation really was. We need to document everything, Mrs. Rodriguez continued. Every check you wrote, every transfer you made, every time they pressured you for money. We'll also update your will and set up legal protections so they can't try this again. We spent 4 hours going through my financial records. When Mrs. Rodriguez saw the total amount, she whistled softly. Mrs. Thompson, with $15,000, you could have taken 3 nice vacations or remodeled your kitchen completely. When I left Mrs. Rodriguez's office, I had a complete action plan. First, I would change all the locks on my house so they couldn't walk in whenever they wanted. Second, I would install a security system with cameras to record any future surprise visits. Third, I would open a new bank account at a different bank where they had no contacts or information. Fourth, I would start living the life I had been postponing for 2 years while I funded theirs. My next stop was the hardware store on Main Street. Mr. Garcia, the owner, had known me for years because I was always buying things to fix up Jake and Emma's apartment. Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Garcia called out when he saw me. What can I help you with today? Another repair project for your son? He asked with the familiarity of someone who had watched me spend money on other people for years. No, Mr. Garcia, I said with a smile. Today I'm buying things for my own house. I need new locks for all my doors, and I want the best quality you have. He looked surprised but didn't ask questions. While I was choosing locks, his nephew Carlos, who installs security systems, stopped by to help another customer. It was perfect timing. Carlos, I said, I also need a complete security system with cameras and alarms. While they prepared everything for installation the next day, my phone rang from an unknown number. It was Emma calling from someone else's phone because I had blocked her regular number after yesterday's confrontation. Mrs. Thompson, please don't hang up, she begged. We need to talk like adults about this situation. Talk, I said coldly. Listen, I know you're angry about the wedding. Jake and I talked about it and we want to make it up to you. How about we have a special celebration dinner for our marriage? We could cook together at your house like we used to do. The manipulation in her voice was so obvious I almost laughed out loud. Emma, I interrupted. How much money do you owe on your electric bill? The silence told me I had hit the target perfectly. Well, it's about $400, she admitted. But I'm not calling just about money, Mrs. Thompson. We really miss having you in our lives. Do you miss me or my checkbook? Ask directly. Both, she said with surprising honesty. Mrs. Thompson, I won't lie to you anymore. Yes, we need your help with money, but we care about you too. You're important to us. If I'm so important, I said, why wasn't I important enough to be at your wedding? Another long silence. We both knew she had no good answer for that question. Emma, I said, I'm going to explain this once, so listen carefully. For 2 years, you and Jake have treated me like a walking ATM machine. You used my love against me to get money. You ignored me unless you needed something. And then you insulted me in the worst way possible by excluding me from your wedding. Now that the money stopped, you suddenly discovered you love me again. Mrs. Thompson, please, she started to say. There is no please, I cut her off. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't family enough for your wedding. Now I'm making mine. I hung up and turned off my phone completely. I didn't want any more interruptions on my day of freedom. That afternoon, I went to the beauty salon I hadn't visited in over a year. I always canceled my appointments because Jake or Emma had some emergency that needed my immediate attention, or because the money I saved for haircuts became money for their rent instead. Mrs. Thompson, called out Sandra, my favorite stylist. I thought you had moved away. It's been so long since I've seen you. I didn't move, Sandra, I said, settling into her chair. I just forgot that I deserve to be pampered too. I got the full treatment, haircut, color, manicure, and pedicure. For the first time in years, I spent money on myself without feeling guilty about it. While Sandra worked on my hair, we talked about her kids, her new house, and her plans for vacation. It was wonderful to have a conversation that didn't revolve around Jake and Emma's latest crisis or money problems. "You look amazing, Mrs. Thompson," Sandra said when she finished. "But more than that, you look happy. Did something good happen in your life?" "Yes, Sandra," I said, looking at myself in the mirror. I finally remembered how to say no. When I got home that evening, there was an unfamiliar car parked across the street from my house. My heart skipped a beat, thinking Jake and Emma might have brought more people to pressure me. But as I got closer, I saw an elderly woman sitting on my front porch steps. "Mrs. Thompson?" she asked as I got out of my car. "Yes, that's me. Can I help you?" "I'm Margaret Foster. I live in the blue house on the corner. We've been neighbors for 3 years, but we've never really had a chance to meet. Yesterday, I heard loud voices coming from your house, and I got worried about you. Is everything okay?" Her genuine concern touched my heart deeply. Here was a complete stranger who cared more about my well-being than my own son did. "Come inside, Mrs. Foster," I said. "I'll make us some tea, and I'll tell you a story that will shock you." While I brewed tea in my kitchen, I told her everything from the beginning. The wedding betrayal, the years of financial support, the legal threats, and my decision to finally stand up for myself. Margaret listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally with understanding. When I finished my story, her eyes were filled with tears. "Mrs. Thompson," she said softly, "you did exactly the right thing. I went through something very similar with my grandson 5 years ago. I also thought it was my job to support his adult lifestyle financially. I also believed he wouldn't love me if I stopped giving him money." "What happened?" I asked eagerly. "I cut off the money when I realized he only visited when his wallet was empty. First, it was horrible. He threatened me, tried to make me feel guilty, and even brought his girlfriend over to cry and beg. But after 6 months, he came back and apologized sincerely. Now we have a real relationship based on respect, not money." Her words gave me hope and confirmed I had made the right choice. "Do you think Jake and Emma will ever understand?" I asked. "Maybe they will, maybe they won't," she answered honestly. "But that's not your responsibility anymore, Mrs. Thompson. Your responsibility now is to take care of yourself and live your own life." That night, for the first time in 2 years, I went to bed without worrying about whether Jake and Emma had money for their bills, their food, or their entertainment. I went to bed thinking about my own future, my own plans, and my own happiness. I slept better than I had in months. The next day, Carlos and Mr. Garcia came at 8 in the morning to change my locks and install the security system. While they worked, my phone kept ringing from different numbers. Emma was still trying to reach me from borrowed phones, but I had developed a new superpower, completely ignoring calls that would bring drama into my peaceful day. "Mrs. Thompson," Carlos said as he finished installing the cameras, "this system will give you total peace of mind. You can see on your phone who's coming to your house even when you're not here. And if anyone tries to break in, the police get called automatically." The irony wasn't lost on me. I was installing a security system to protect myself from my own son and his wife. But it didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. It was just a practical step to protect my newfound peace. While they worked, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years. Call my sister Rose in Denver. We had lost touch because every conversation became a report about how much money I was spending on Jake and Emma and how proud I was to be helping them. Now I realized our talks had become financial updates disguised as family news. "Sandra," Rose answered, surprised to hear from me. "Sister, how are you? We haven't talked in ages." "I'm wonderful, Rose. Better than wonderful. I'm calling to tell you that I finally came to my senses." I told her the whole story from beginning to end. The secret wedding, the years of financial support, the legal threats, and my decision to stop funding their lifestyle. Rose listened quietly, and when I finished, her response surprised me. "Sandra, it's about time. Every time we talked, it broke my heart to hear you brag about giving them money like love could be measured in dollar bills. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know how. What did you want to tell me? Yes. That Jake never spoke lovingly about you when I saw him at family gatherings. It was always my mom helped me buy this or my mom paid for that. But never I miss my mom, or I love spending time with my mom. It was like you were a service he used, not a person he cherished. Her words stung, but it was the kind of pain that comes with healing. Like when a nurse cleans a deep cut, it hurts, but it prevents infection. You know what else I noticed? Rose continued. Emma always talked about you in past tense, like when Mrs. Thompson is gone, we can renovate her house, or after we inherit, we'll start our business. This revelation hit me like a truck. They didn't just see me as an ATM. They saw me as a temporary inconvenience standing between them and their inheritance. While I was trying to make them happy in the present, they were planning their future around my death. After talking with Rose, I sat in my kitchen processing this information. 20 years of marriage to a man who truly loved me, then 12 years of raising Jake alone after his father passed away, followed by 2 years of financing 2 adults who were counting down the days until I died. The doorbell rang, and through my new camera system, I saw it was Margaret with a plate in her hands. I thought you might enjoy some fresh-baked cookies after everything you told me yesterday, she said with that warm smile I was learning to treasure. We sat in my living room, and Margaret shared more details about her experience with her grandson. My grandson said the exact same things to me that Emma says to you. You're like a grandmother to me. We're special to you. Everything will be ours someday anyway. They learn these phrases from somewhere, Mrs. Thompson. It's like they all read from the same playbook. Do you think there's actually a manual for this? I asked, half joking. Not officially, she laughed. But they all seem to know the same tricks. Chapter 1, Make her feel needed. Chapter 2, Create constant financial emergencies. Chapter 3, When she resists, question her mental health. We both laughed, but it was bitter laughter. It was funny and sad at the same time to recognize such predictable patterns in our own family's behavior. Did you ever feel guilty for stopping the money? I asked Margaret. Every single day for the first 4 months, she answered honestly. But then I started seeing positive changes. My grandson got a better job. His girlfriend stopped spending money on expensive clothes and learned to budget. Most importantly, they learned that I was a person with feelings, not just a resource to be used up. That afternoon, I decided to visit my husband's grave for the first time in 6 months. I always found excuses not to go because Jake or Emma needed something urgent, or because the gas money was better spent on their latest emergency. The cemetery was quiet and peaceful. David's headstone looked neglected because I hadn't been there to clean it and bring fresh flowers. I sat on the grass next to his grave and talked to him like he was still alive. David, my love, I think I lost myself for a while there. After you died, I put all my energy into Jake, thinking I could be both mother and father to him. I wanted to give him everything so he wouldn't feel the loss of not having his dad around. But somewhere along the way, I forgot to take care of myself. The wind blew gently through the trees, and for a moment, I felt like he was listening. Your son has become someone I don't recognize, David. Maybe he was always selfish and I just didn't want to see it. His wife is... Well, you can imagine. The money you left for my retirement. I spent it all on them. But I've learned my lesson now, my darling. I'm going to live the rest of my life for me, the way you would have wanted. I cleaned his grave, replaced the dead flowers with fresh daisies, and stayed there for another hour just enjoying the peace. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't rushing home to solve a crisis for Jake and Emma. When I got home, there were 3 cars parked in front of my house again. My heart started racing, but this time I was prepared. The security cameras showed me Jake, Emma, and 2 people I didn't recognize, all standing on my porch looking agitated. I didn't get out of my car. Instead, I called Mrs. Rodriguez, my lawyer. Mrs. Rodriguez, they're at my house again with more people. What should I do? Stay in your car, Mrs. Thompson. I'm coming right over, and I'm calling the police. After our meeting yesterday, I filed for a temporary restraining order. They're not allowed on your property anymore. Within minutes, Mrs. Rodriguez arrived with 2 police cars. I watched the officers talk to Jake and Emma while they gestured angrily toward my car. I saw my son's face turn red with frustration and Emma pointing at me